Hey everybody, Glenn Haussman here, reporting for heretostay.tv, and I'm with Sean Worker, President and CEO of BridgeStreet Global Hospitality. You know, Sean, one of the things that I'm seeing is the alternative accommodations business is now in the mainstream conversation out there. 2 years ago, you couldn't see that. What's happening?
There is this groundswell of demand, particularly when we're talking about an employee-oriented conference. Relocation, they need people to move.
Right.
Well, the demand today has been influenced by the majors that we all talk about every day, the Airbnbs, the Lyfts, the Ubers, that people don't want to be confined to the hotel program. And equally, some of the other topics that will be coming up in some of the thought leadership sessions are centered around the need for recruiting and retention of the workforce as there's increased pressure for specialized jobs. And what's driving a lot of human resource departments and mobility departments is at the recruiting level. So they're now, hard to find engineers and hard to find specialists in service,
right,
or thought leadership jobs, and there's some 30, and they're going like, we want something different. And what we've done, particularly with what we've launched over the last 2.5 years or so, is making that accessible, conventional,
right,
duty of care, conforming to what an HR director, a CFO, a head of mobility can say, yes, that conforms to their program. And that's been a big dialogue here.
That's fascinating. And we are, of course, at the Global Workforce Symposium here in Chicago, Illinois. And that's interesting that you point that out, because here in the United States, we're at about 4.6 unemployment, which is considered full employment.
Yeah.
So that means employers have to think a little bit more strategically how to add value to somebody's life and experience. And I guess that really touches on what you're saying with alternative accommodations. They can be more feel like a local, have larger spaces, and just feel like they belong a little bit more.
So I always love averages. So
yeah,
the 4.6% unemployment is the average. In certain tranches of jobs, there's such a lack of supply of qualified employees, either software engineers, in some cases, in some parts of the country, truck drivers, believe it or not, in the world of AI coming. So it's actually beyond 4.6, it's nearly 100% employment.
Right.
And so what they're competing with is what are the fringe benefits, and particularly in a gig economy where employees will likely have 15 to 20 jobs in their lifetime. And so you're trying to get an employee to be productive faster than ever. So you can't wait a year, right, you got to do it in 3 months.
So that means setting them up in a place so they could feel themselves.
Right. Well, they're actually choosing the job based on a wider range of characteristics. It's not just about the money and the career opportunities, about what's in it for me.
Right.
Does there have a bit of travel in it? Is there some way that I can contribute differently in a different office?
Right.
So it's all these multiple short stints of travel, and they want to be able to choose that themselves.
And it's fair to say that really it's a quality of life issue. We're past the idea of punching into an office 9 to 5 every day.
Yep.
People want to work and live the way they want to do. And how does alternative accommodations help enable people to live that way?
So it's the technology to enable them to give choice. So on our platform, we're expressing that through either home service departments and extended stay hotels that gives them the flexibility to choose how they want to spend either that lump sum or within their guidelines. But equally, they can choose to book through the booking hubs that are for their own companies. But that's all part of the work experience, the work, not even work-life balance. It's completely integrated. Maybe sometimes I'll work out of the service department or one of the alternative accommodation spots, and I'm in Amsterdam, but I'm gigging for 3 months. Right. They may be a contractor. And so there's this whole idea of where I want to be. It's it's kind of a little bit more selfish than normal.
No, it makes sense. I was in a hotel in Seekonk, Massachusetts last week, and I ran into 3 guys that were there putting glass on a building, and they were living in a hotel for 2 months straight. And I think about how different their life would be if they were enmeshed in an apartment, and they're enmeshed in a home where they could all be together and kind of cook and have that experience. And I guess that's kind of what you're opening up.
And it's evolving. That once you get trust in the system, and it's not widely available yet.
Yeah.
It seems a little exotic, but you can see in 2 years it's dramatically changed as people have embraced other types of products. And it's really more of a holistic sharing notion, right? Uber is more conventional than ever.
Right.
Lyft is more conventional. It's not exotic anymore. You don't tell your friends, hey, I just rode my first Uber.
Right. If you do, they'll just laugh at you.
Yeah,
Well, it took so long.
Or that it's like saying, oh, you're an Amazon Prime member,
Right, yeah.
and you just did that. You're like
Right.
bizarre.
By the way, I just got on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Wow, that's a big leap there. Yeah. So it's this. That's what's driving the conversation in this conference. How the supply chain that feeds that, the industry around that, and at the end of the day, if it doesn't sit on your phone, being served up to you your way, over time you will be irrelevant if you can't lead most of your life through that appendage, which you currently do. You can bank off your phone. You can order travel off your phone. You can order food. You can make an appointment with your doctor. You can order your drugs. Yet for some reason, you can't have a holistic movement of how I travel unless you're doing it through a third party. That's got to get sorted out.
Well, that's what you're doing. You're sorting that out. You're making it work. You're opening up, real-time booking and a lot of different things based on technology.
But it's taking this disparate level of unusual inventory and making it very easy for businesses to book.
Yeah, and beyond even businesses, I think there's a lot of opportunity for, just generally speaking, for people as they discover these alternative accommodations. I think it's something that they want to stay in. It's why I think some of the major hotel chains are getting involved in extended stay hotels, and I know the next step is going to be more of a apartment and home focus too.
It's interesting watching them dabble, and it's nearly like watching maybe some of the hotel companies trying to discover what's the new thing when the new thing has been here for 5 years.
Right.
And, how are they dealing with, in all fairness, anyone who's defending the castle of a branded hotel group has to defend the castle.
Right.
And how do you flex that and adapt to that over time? And that's all yet to reveal itself, how they embrace that or not.
But you seem to be doing that. So how, as a leader, do you take a company that was very set in its ways for a long time and shift them to a whole new approach because of consumer behavioral changes, because of technological changes?
It's working with our teammates and saying, look, we have some choices. How do we get from here to there? We want to scale our business to be $1 billion business. It's amazing when you sit down with your team and say, okay, how do we get to $1 billion business?
Right.
And look at what the threats are and have an adult practical conversation. And there's lots of examples of evolutionary companies. Amazon started as a bookstore.
Right.
Now they bought Whole Foods and they have cloud-based, but their core is all about the customer, right? They're like mission-led is around that customer, regardless of what product they're using, buying, experiencing. They get the Amazon experience. The answer is yes, we're going to fix that. So our choice was to either be just a single point of resale of a corporate housing in the old days, serviced apartments, and now alternative accommodation. How do you make that conventional? And how do you take all that inventory in the world and make it digitally easy to understand?
Right.
And we viewed that instead of expanding the old model with take more leases, we actually could create unique demand to match with supply. We viewed, when we asked our suppliers, they said, we want to get access to these customers that you have.
Right.
And we said, great. So why don't we think about how you actually interface with them differently than you do today? So we didn't have to just change our company. We had to bring all of our partners and everybody else to get current.
Yeah.
And then scale ahead.
Right. And speaking about scaling ahead and staying current, you have to be focused on what's happening in the news and in the moment. Recently here in the United States, we had several devastating hurricanes, in particular Florida and Houston, and then also we're seeing the Puerto Rico situation. But you folks were there, you're on the ground helping out. Tell me a little bit about that story.
So all of these things are devastating.
Yeah.
And there's lots of companies that can enable a kind of a bridge, all pun intended, to help the companies that are locally stand themselves up quicker, that gets the population back on their feet faster. And because we have a lot of links with the companies, we reached out to banks and remediation companies and construction companies that we do business with anyway and say, how do we help you get your teams there that are either employees that are under duress, there's terrible stories about 7 foot of water in people's houses.
Yeah, of course.
How do we get them stood up so that we can get your banking system back up? They need a place to base.
Right.
And we had the visibility onto what inventory wasn't flooded. And then we started to stand up our machine that got that information out to all these companies, say, look, we found 5 apartments about 20 miles from you, or there's another 4 here, 10 there, and they're moving quickly. Do you want these? They didn't have the infrastructure to do that.
Right.
So we were able to help with that. We obviously supported the Red Cross in their endeavors to try and bring immediate aid to, it was both Houston and then Florida and Puerto Rico. And we have bases in each one of those, and supported them just by giving them visibility and then supplying services. But equally, we have suppliers on the ground that we wanted to help and get them back on their feet. Because that's when you have to do that. You have to participate in the really tough times as well as the good times. So that seemed to be received well.
I would think so, and it must be interesting springing into action and not really thinking about the company necessarily from, we've got to make quarterly profits or stuff, just doing the basic human thing to do.
You just get on with it.
Yeah.
And we have a very agile, fun team base that goes, okay, we can do this, and you just spring into action, and we're built for that.
How do you make sure that everybody on the team is flexible and in the moment and has that BridgeStreet kind of spirit to it?
You can't make that happen.
Yeah.
That's where you hopefully are attracting the natural fit, where that's just part of themselves, and that you want to play well with others, and there's a mutual dependency. And so good leadership at each one of the levels in the organization to inspire rather than the alternative.
Right. Yeah. Well, now that we've talked about everything else, I want to talk about the big headline that we're leaving for the end. You made a huge deal with SiteMinder. Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what that's going to do for you?
This is part of our mission to enable bookings for disparate inventory, alternative accommodation, to make it just easy to book for businesses. So with SiteMinder, they're generally regarded as one of the larger channel managers in the world. And they, fortunately, as we went through the vetting process, decided that we were capable, worthy, and other to go through that process and then to come out the other side as a partner, which means that we can connect all of this inventory again with suppliers, with alternative accommodations, get it done in real time, and serve it up to companies in the way they need to do it. They need to book it through Sabre, the GDSs, all the Apollos of the world, and even we can serve that up in hubs that are built specifically to that company. We can serve it up on any device in real time, so their employees are getting a frictionless experience, which is now the great buzzword. And
I was actually sitting here in my head saying friction. Yeah. It seems to me that everything we've talked about today is about removing friction points from the entire experience.
Yeah, the more complicated you make it, the more less people understand. So we're simply just connecting inventory that is curated to a business that has that need and making it easy.
Right.
That's it.
It seems like things were a lot more complicated than they needed to be, but you're here.
Get rid of keystrokes.
Right.
Bye-bye keystrokes.
Great. Anything else you want to mention today?
As always, you just cover it all in one go.
Great. Well, that's what I like to hear. Thank you, sir, and thank you all for watching. For heretostay.tv, I'm Glenn Haussman.